Let's now talk about how the looming shutdown will affect employers, given the fact that some employees might not arrive for their shifts. Legal Director at Strata-g Labour Solutions, Advocate Tertius Wessels, joins us now. Advocate, thank you so much for making time. Let me first get your reaction to the judgment coming from the court this weekend, confirming that the the EFF are barred from inciting violence, but the DA has failed, seemingly from this court judgment, from interdicting the actual national shutdown itself on Monday.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the viewers. I think we all welcome the judgment that's been handed down. I think from the onset, we all expected that the protest action would not have been interdicted and avoided. If we think about the fact that the South African Federation of Trade Unions had duly complied with the provisions of Section 77 of the Labour Relations Act, it was always a case of the protest action being protected for SAFTU and its affiliated trade unions. But the fact that the court has now at least interdicted any form of incitement of violence, damage to property is welcomed. And it will place our defence forces, the police services, in a position where they can immediately act in circumstances where they find that those protesting are committing acts of violence.
Okay, let's focus on SAFTU because they've applied for that Section 77 strike. Let's start with the difference maybe that you can explain to us between a Section 77 strike and any other strike.
So ordinary strikes as we know it normally resolves around grievances between a particular group of employees and their employer. We would have seen that with the Newzroom strike of recent, where the workers had demanded an increase in wages and government, being the employer, had tabled a certain percentage. So the strike was very specific between a dispute between an employer and employees. What makes a Section 77 strike different is that it doesn't necessarily concern matters of mutual interest between employers and employees, but it has as its core socio-economic reasons. So other reasons that potentially still have an impact on ordinary employees. Those could be the rising cost of living, increase in petrol prices, or load shedding, as is the case for the strike or the protest action that we see on Monday.
Are there any potential fallouts or drawbacks that may arise from the strike?
I think there's drawbacks for both employers and employees at the end of the day. Those that elect to partake in the protest action need to understand that the principle of no work, no pay shall apply to them. And for businesses at large, it has an impact of employees not tendering their services, which has the impact of businesses not being able to operate as efficiently as they ordinarily would. This could have an impact not only on the ability to for turnover or profits, but could also put them on the back foot. And we could later on see many small businesses embarking on process of possibly retrenching employees. Our biggest concern has always been the informal trade, those that operate on a daily basis in order to, at the end of the day, go back to a shop, buy food or something for their family in order to sustain them. And how are those small businesses or informal businesses going to be impacted by the protest?
Yeah. We know that there are some employees that have just come out of that public sector strike that was led by Nehau. And I'm just wondering how employers can negotiate in good faith with the unions or the workers' representations. What factors do you see as normally leading to unions embarking on a strike? And how can employers improve that relationship with their workers' representatives?
And maintaining a good relationship with any trade union within the workplace is always critical when it comes to wage increases or negotiating any other forms of terms and conditions of employment. We often see that both trade unions and employers take almost a hardline approach when it comes to negotiations. The Newzroom incident is a classic example of same. Government was steadfast in their position of a 3% increase. Newzroom was steadfast in their demand for a 10% increase. But as soon as parties actually started engaging one another with an open mind and in good faith, we saw that they eventually weren't able to reach a compromise. So it's engaging in those negotiations with good faith, not adopting a polarized position, and being open and transparent about the current circumstances that's facing a particular employer that will ultimately mean that we are able to reach a resolution depending on what those demands are.
Yeah. So Tuesday is a public holiday. What do you think will be the expected impact of this looming strike?
So we know for a fact that the protest action on Monday is what is regarded as a protected protest action, where everybody that wishes to partake is able to exercise their constitutional right to protest and do so peacefully. The next concern that arises is what's going to happen if this protest rolls over to the Tuesday. The EFF has quite clearly come out to say that where that protest continues on Tuesday, it will not be an EFF-led protest, but it will more be the people that are wanting a revolution within the country. And while a lot of emphasis has been placed on Monday and measures have been put in place to ensure that it's business as usual on Monday, we'll have to wait and see as to what is going to transpire on Tuesday. Of course, a lot of people have come out to say there's no coincidence that the protest has been called for Monday because Tuesday is Human Rights Day.
Yeah.
Thereby insinuating a long weekend for many employers and employees.
Yeah. Do you think that a lot of employees are going to take, that advantage? I know there have been jokes, going around that this is almost like a perfect excuse for employees to say, oh, I'm worried about how I may be impacted by this protest/strike. So therefore, I am going to either work from home or I'm going to take this day off. So how do you think employees are going to be responding? And also, how do you think it's best for employers to respond, especially those, whose employees are flexible enough to do and carry out their responsibilities from home?
I think those employers and employees that can adopt a flexible working arrangement will embrace the situation and just resort back to working from home in order to minimize the impact that the protest action might have on business. But we've also seen many employers adopt a more precautionary approach out of fear of violence or looting of their businesses and have elected to close down their operations, thereby forcing employees to take annual leave come Monday as just to protect everybody's safety. I think for the most part, there are still many businesses that have come out to say that they've taken precautionary measures and it's going to be business as normal. The airports have said it, or a lot of the taxi association has said it. So for most people, it's going to be business as normal because whether or not employees that are partaking in the protest action or those that are unable to come to work as a result of the disruptions caused by the process, they cannot simply afford to lose their wages for the day. The reality is that a lot of South Africans are either unemployed or earning the basic minimum wage, and losing that wage for simply just one day does have an impact on their ability to care for their family and extended family members.
Yeah. Advocate Tertius Wessels, thank you for joining us for this chat.